Hello and welcome back to the PH Journey Unplugged podcast. I am Dr. Marilyn Ward with my colleague, Dr. Sarah Gordon, and today we have a special guest. So, Dr. Gordon, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Sure, it's be my pleasure. So we have Dr. Ezequiel Benavides, who is also a classmate, graduate of Concordia University, Chicago. And after I introduce him and his research, some background information, we're going to talk about how we built a connection. Today, we're talking about building meaningful connections. So, Dr. Benavides, your research is fascinating. I love learning about it. The title of your dissertation was From Disadvantage to Empowerment, Elementary Physical Education Teachers' Perspectives on Technology Integration and its Impact on Students' Engagement and Motivation in Physical Education in Economically Challenged Areas. Congratulations on completing your doctorate. We're so happy to have you
Congratulations.
here as our first guest. Thank you so much for being here with us. And just for our listeners today, Dr. Benavides is the founder of Dr. Benavides Physical Education Services. And let me tell you, I went on your website to just kind of learn a little bit, right? And I love your quote on your website. Movement is more than just motion, it's connection, growth, and purpose. And as I introduce you, I just think it's important to put that out there because that's kind of how you view it. And it's an outstanding quote. Um, he is also a lecturer at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. He has a background in sports leadership, education, and kinesiology. Dr. Benavides combines real-world coaching experience with academic insight to support underserved schools and communities through movement-based programs. He's passionate about helping kids stay active, making physical education more engaging, and supporting educators with tools that actually work. Whether he's teaching future teachers or consulting with schools, Dr. Benavides brings energy, purpose, and a deep commitment to student wellness. And I love that. I think that your work is so important and so meaningful, and we feel truly blessed and grateful to have you here today.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Really look forward to joining with you guys. Been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I just gotta say right here from the beginning, it's been it's a great podcast. I thought it was just a great idea from the start.
Right?
Um, who doesn't want to listen to a room full of doctors just talking to each other and throwing ideas at each other? It was a great idea from the start, and I'm glad that I can contribute in some way.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
Yay.
so much.
Exciting.
So when I was reading your dissertation, well, the truth, let's just be honest, I couldn't get through the whole thing right up the off the bat, but I did kind of dive in and pull out, and I do look forward to reading it in more detail, but I noticed one of the themes of your research was about building meaningful connections. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because we'll all three kind of talk about our research a bit, but we all kind of touched on that in from different directions. And then just even how you and I met. And I thought, and I asked you, what do you think about a podcast topic about the impact of building meaningful connections? And I'll let you start from your perspective of how we kind of bumped into each other.
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, we happened to be graduating at the exact same time. Had no clue that we were gonna be in the same class, and you gave the commencement speech. And what ended up happening was, I was there listening to the commencement speech, and I was like, "Wow, this is extremely impactful." Now, keep in mind, this is my first time in Chicago. My family came. It was a big accomplishment, and we're listening to this speech and just finding so many different connections. Later, after the speech, me and my wife were talking about it, and we just thought like, wow, she just literally told our story.
Aw.
So going from where you start, climbing the mountain, coming back, like everybody's at a different part of their journey, yet we still have some sort of relation to each other. My wife and I, we're really we really engaged with that with the speech. And so it just so happened that when we were leaving, my wife wanted a picture in front of the Concordia sign because we don't know when we're gonna go back to Chicago. And I had told her, yeah, you know what, that's fine. Now keep in mind, we have our first child, and at the time she was about 4 months old, so it was a little bit hard to park and get the baby off and take a picture. And my wife's like, you're really good at talking to people, so why don't you just ask somebody to take a picture for you? And I was like, yeah, I'll ask somebody. And I looked down, and sure enough, that's where Dr. Gordon was. And
Oh my gosh.
first person I saw, and I was like, wait a minute, you're the person that gave the speech. By the way, love the speech, this and that. And we just hit it off. And I had asked her, can I ask you for a huge favor? Can you please take a picture of me right by this sign? And then sure enough, Dr. Gordon even started talking to my wife. And I think my wife pretty much was saying the same things that I had just told her about the speech. And we just kind of hit it off from there.
That's amazing.
I thought it was meant to be. We've stayed in touch since then. Yeah, it's been, I'm glad it happened. I feel like it was meant to happen.
Divine intervention.
Exactly.
Well, and I remember it the same way. And I remember going over to the car and seeing your wife with your newborn baby. And I mean, not to be like, get emotional here, but it just goes, and we've talked about it in past episodes. It just goes to show each other and our listeners. We've talked about overcoming obstacles. We've talked about the mental toll. We've talked about the physical struggle. We've talked about finding balance. You just, I mean, you juggled a lot to cross the finish line. And first, it's an amazing um, display of resilience and hard work. And so yeah, I believe it was meant to be as well. So
And I love it because, like I think you mentioned earlier, like all three of us, different journey, same end road kind of, but different paths to get there. And so it's very unique into the test. And I can remember way back when having little ones and trying to go to school, like getting the associates and bachelors, and now thank goodness mine are grown. But so to see you now sitting there, going through that sacrifices you made, to still make it happen and still be there for your family. And the fact that your family was so excited you had to take them all to be there with you. That's great. That's awesome. What a good story.
and it's incredible because we met at commencement, and then now I'm introducing you to Marilyn, and we all met through CUC, Concordia University,
Oh,
Chicago. And then we take that in terms of the benefit, the positive aspect of building connections, and then it grows.
yeah.
Um, and it's an interesting phenomenon. I wanted you to talk a little bit about how you came up with that theme in your research, and just a little bit about your research.
Definitely. So I took some notes here just to share with you guys. So just to give you a heads up, I know the title is very long. First of all, prior to being a university lecturer, I was a PE teacher for several years. And we everybody at their jobs has, how can we make this better? How can we improve this, right? And I noticed, especially within these last few years, post COVID, that technology has a huge impact even in the physical education world. We saw it during COVID, how much it just 180 the entire game, and how much it stayed there even after. So in my research, I got the perspectives of different PE teachers, And I wanted to know their perspectives on what they thought about technology, and how they implemented it. And a bunch of different PE teachers with different backgrounds, some teaching just when COVID started, some teaching 20, 30 years before COVID. It's just a wide range. And it was interesting to see how they all almost saw technology as a benefit. And when we say the word technology, it's not necessarily just iPads and computers. Technology is a very umbrella term, where it could be something as simple as music, pedometers. It was interesting to see how different PE teachers used the term technology as well. So I thought it was very interesting. But one of the common themes that we found was it's technology, but it's only meaningful when we make some sort of connection to it. And I think that was the overarching theme, which was, hey, you know what? We live in a world where obesity rates are higher than they've ever been. Kids want to be on their phone more than ever. Kids are not motivated to be moving around. And who wants somebody to be yelling at them or raising their voice at them and telling them to move, and they're just there when they don't like it? So one of the most common things was building that student connection. Um, we found a lot of different ways where these teachers were building these connections with the students to get them to move. And it's gotten to a point where the students don't realize that they're moving. That was one of the major themes. And then later, we found out that there was actually an academic significance to this, right? And these students started to trust their teachers and trust the movement, and it started to impact their development. In the academic setting, the trust between the students and the faculty was vital for cognitive and emotional engagement. So now, when I say that, this is more advanced learning that we had with the students. Now we're talking about cross-curricular learning. So no longer just, hey, do 10 push-ups. Hey, do 10 jumping jacks. Now we're developing games where you're using math, you're using reading, you're using recall information, you're starting to summarize things, and they don't realize that they're doing it. And all it takes is building that little bit of a connection with them and then relating it back to what they learned in class, right? So one of my favorite things to do, when we had students come into the gym, was they would come in, we give them high fives. Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, how are you doing? How's your brother doing? Because they might have had their brother so many years ago. And just getting that little bit of feedback. And I love to start with we would call it chit chat time, right? So we would, instead of them coming down and, okay, sit down and we're gonna do our lesson today, we had an understanding with the students that, and this is just me personally, we had an understanding with the students. Hey, you're gonna have 5 minutes to talk. I know everybody's happy. This is the first time that they're seeing their friends all day. Probably the only time that they will see them all day. So we'll give you about 5 minutes to have your conversation, and then we're gonna get started with today's lesson. And at that time, I loved it as an instructor to walk around and start to pick their brains and hey, what did you learn in class today? What did you cover today? And of course, asking those questions to the classroom teachers as well, and then trying to relate whatever lesson that we had to what they were currently learning. And so we really did find that impact when you can make those connections.
And so interesting, because you focus on K through 12, and Marilyn's going to share about her research as well, because she focused with older adults in as assisted living or independent living.
Independent living.
And I focus on older triathletes. And so we all came at this with different populations. And what's really fascinating, and you talk, Marilyn said, divine intervention, but we all found a similar theme, which is very fascinating. So, Marilyn, do you want to share a little bit about importance of social connections in your and building relationships in your population.
Right. And it's the same thing, I think, like what you're saying, is that it's that trust and that communication and because here I am as their, like you're just a young at that time, 40, 40-some-year-old. What are we gonna learn from you? Seniors are very set in their ways, just like some young, stubborn children are. But once they understood that I was there to help them and they trusted me and they trusted what I was saying, but then it was like the peers learning from peers. It was a group of seniors all working out together. But I do say, they're still competitive because my age group was what, 62. That's the age you could move into the place. And I think my oldest participant was 94. And so even though there was that bit of an age gap, and I used to say, you're only in competition with yourself. But they would say, well, you can do these seated squats. How come I can't do as many? And I said, hey, love yourself. It's just you. But that I think it's that trust. And then the camaraderie of all of them together, which, we same thing. Before our class, we always had a few minutes where we were all chit-chatting. Now I didn't look at it as structured as you did, but now looking back, I'm like, hey, that's kind of what they did. Came in the morning, got, chit-chatted before we settled into, whatever, jumping jacks, whatever their exercise. But yeah, really neat.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me. I mean, we all have an interest in health and health promotion and wellness, and whether you're working with children, trying to work against the chronic illness epidemics. It's at every age, like you said, obesity and diabetes, and I mean, I've even younger children having cardiovascular disease. I mean, it's scary, and I know we're all trying to have our voice in terms of a health promotion. So I think it's interesting that we're seeing similar things at different ages. Now, my research focused on older triathletes, a little bit at the different end of the continuum. These are 65 and older, highly physically active older adults. But what's interesting to me is one of the major themes that came out of my research was focused on the importance of the triathlon community, the camaraderie, the connections, the meeting new friends, seeing old friends, and making those connections with people. Very strong theme across my research. And, it's kind of like why I wanted to have this conversation today with you, because I think that's so interesting that even though our research was so different, we're finding very similar human motivators, right? And so if you're trying to motivate younger children to love physical education and you're making it fun, they're maybe these are lasting habits that you're instilling in these children. Um, Marilyn and I are seeing it a little bit at the other end of the story in terms of older adults, but it can happen in your daily life too. We always talk about making connections, just talking to, well, your gentleman, your friend Marilyn.
Oh, I know that I'm still trying to find. I'm like, maybe he went up north for the summer. I can't find him. But I was just thinking, like, I'm so glad or so excited, glad, happy, for the work that you're doing. Because I always say, I wish we were teaching children the importance of movement at an early age. So when we get to this age, they don't have the same problems that we might be facing. But but for you to make it fun, so I'm gonna have to go and dig deep into your research as well and see, because I think it's a unique way of thinking about it. Like you mentioned the cognition and the memory recall, like that's what I did. I have never heard anybody else discuss cognition and memory recall in children. So, um, awesome. Like, this is like game-changing information here.
Well, and just one quick thing, and then Zeke, I'm sorry, I know we call you Zeke. So
Okay.
I just let the cat out of the bag.
I love it though. Dr. Zeke sounds
Dr.
really
Zeke.
flashy.
We just said last week, Marilyn, or I think it was last week. when you said, or it was one of the last episodes, when you said we have to start having these conversations earlier.
Yes.
I think we said, maybe in your 20s. And I mean, she said she just said it, we have to start earlier. And here, having you on our show today, we're saying we need to start in elementary school. We need to start very early on to have this conversation about how important physical education is in healthy aging and longevity and living a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, can I just add to that?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I love the idea. I think the biggest goal is to get get people hooked on physical activity for a lifetime, right? Showing them that it's fun. Um, people like I understand, like we talked about earlier, everybody's at a different point in their life, and but it's important to remember that we're all in this together. So I know, you mentioned even just starting as early as elementary. Well, one of my goals with the our Dr. Benavides Physical Education Services is really to even go into daycares and start as early as there, because I I really want to start making that impact with children, teaching people how to make it fun for them. Nobody wants to be sitting down all day writing, and yeah, they want to be on the computer, but to a certain extent, you only have so much stamina to be on a computer all day or a video game all day. Mind you, their stamina for that's probably a lot longer than ours. But um, I I truly believe that if you really want to do something, you will make time for it. And if you get these children engaged and hooked into physical activity, it's just as fun as a video game, right? And you can start at 5, 4, 3 years old, even 2 year old. um One of the elementaries that I had worked at, we even had a pre-K 3 program, and even with 3 year olds, just physical activity, not even knowing um that they're competing really, but they were moving. And I mean, I can tell you just from firsthand experience, 45 minutes of students moving around, sweating and smiling, and somehow they still have energy going back to class.
And
It's
sorry.
it's really fun when you can engage and just develop these connections with them, because they don't realize that how much work they're actually doing.
I, can I say one quick thing, Marilyn?
Oh, yeah.
I completely agree with that. And it's interesting because in my research as well, and maybe this is something for you to learn at, so because you're working with the younger, the children, a younger generation. I had focused on the older generation. Enjoyment was another huge motivating factor for living physically active lives in the 65 and older group, which is really interesting because if you can instill in children how much fun it is and helping them find things that they love to do in terms of being physically active, that's the key when you get older.
Right.
That's the key to longevity and being physically active. I think that's so fascinating. And one more quick little thing is I found that enjoyment it's an intrinsically motivated behavior. And research shows us that the more intrinsic or internally regulated a behavior is, the more likely you're going to have long-term adherence to it. And so that's really important.
And then I was just going to add, like, the kids, they're having fun. They don't even know that they're improving their brain health.
There you
You know,
go.
I think that's a side bonus, right? Like, they don't even understand. But like you said, they'll build it when they're young. I mean, I used to race with my kids when they were young. Like, they would do like little 5Ks with me. And now, they both grew up and they enjoy it. My son probably more than my daughter, but, like, I do. I think it builds these habits that, forever and ever. And so, ah, again, I'm so excited about this.
And Marilyn, you bring up a really good point, and I'm going to give it back to Dr. Benavides about cognitive health. So you're talking about learning, children learning. And so there's so many, I mean, we just know, I mean, we're researchers, so we've studied the science. We know the benefits of physical activity on cognition, in addition to so many other benefits.
Right.
And so, you know, it's powerful for children what you're doing. I mean, you're not only just physically encouraging them and with good health, you're improving their cognitive skill set as well. What do you
I,
think?
I appreciate that. You got me thinking just a little bit, a little bit more, and let me just say that I had a lot of fun doing this research. It was interesting to see. Um, so one other thing that I want to touch on is I started thinking about the economically challenged part of it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I'll let you know. Here in the Rio Grande Valley, our it is considered an economically challenged area, and so time after time, I'll just use football as an example. You'll see there's very few teams that high school football they're playing, and they'll make it to the playoffs, and we usually go second, third round, sometimes fourth round in the as far as the football playoffs, right? But every time we get to playing a Corpus team, playing a San Antonio team, playing a Dallas team, we we don't just lose, we lose pretty bad.
Yeah.
And it was just a pattern that I noticed. It's okay, how many times are we gonna get beaten 40-0,
Mhm.
45-10 before we do something about it, right? And not only are we significantly undersized, but there's there's not much we can do about that because that's genetics, but there is other things that we can do about it to try and give us a more competitive advantage. So when I was doing my research, I took a deeper dive into it, and you know, if you look, uh, these schools up in the Dallas area, in the Houston area, San Antonio area, they start from the elementary level, and they may not have their high school coaches go and look at the elementary, but those high school coaches have a relationship with the middle school coaches who have a relationship with the elementary coaches who have aspirations to be high school coaches, and so they build this connection and they emphasize it. um Side note, another thing that they really emphasize is track, which isn't very emphasized here in the Rio Grande Valley. So yes, genetics does play a part of it, but there's other things that are involved as well. And so when we were looking at this, right, how they're making this connection from a very early start, um, going back to the economic part of it, some of these schools have fridge, stocked with food, nutritionists on staff at the high school level, and they're starting to get it at the middle school level, where they're training at a very very early age to compete. And so now we're looking back over here at the RGV, and we're wondering like, hey, why can't we compete? Well, we're not emphasizing the same things that they are. And some of that's due to funding, right? We don't have these fancy recovery machines that they have, or these machines that are testing your cognitive abilities to react to certain aspects, right? And one thing that I wanted to do in this research was, are we not doing that because it's not available to us, or are we not doing that because that's something we just don't want to do because we're set in our ways?
Hmm.
Makes a
Um,
good point.
so I'll tell you right now, I know one of the schools uh that we're at. I mean, well, like I said, all of them are economically challenged areas, but even at that, some schools have more funding than others in within the same city, and some schools had more technology, more advanced technology than schools than other schools. And so I'll tell you that we didn't have too much technology. I know personally we didn't have too much, but try not to use that as an excuse. And hey, you know what? Here's QR codes to do a journal while we're walking, or here's a quick video on how to do this, and now we're gonna practice it together. So I'm trying to practice these different ways of implementing technology to like to say, what's the excuse? What's the big excuse? Especially when it's so accessible to us, even when we don't have the same funding that other schools do.
Well, let me ask you one quick question, because I don't know if you remember the grants class that we took. You guys remember grants?
I do.
And when you think about getting funding for the program that you're talking about, it is all about building connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we look at it from many different perspectives. Since you have this platform through our podcast today, like, what do you think? How do you think it can, the students that you're talking about, how do you think they can get the resources that they need in terms of building connections there?
Well, one thing I think that's super important is having an instructor that's actually involved.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I wanted to provide these different services, because again, like I mentioned earlier, a piece of technology is only as good as the connections that you have with it. So okay, maybe we might not have the technology that other schools have, but let's utilize what we do have, right? Let's not make excuses about not using this, or using this only once a week. Let's find ways to implement it on a daily basis.
You're a very positive person, and definitely a blessing to be in the space that you're in to help these students. I, I think about strategies to build connections. Like every week we did this podcast a little differently because we wanted to talk about your research, and we don't want to like dive too deep into um, different ways to talk about building connections, but we always do like to wrap up on strategies to build connections. And one that I have, and I think, and like to see what you guys think, is don't be afraid to ask for help. We kind of always say that every week, regardless of what we're talking about. Don't you know, be fearless a little bit in asking for funding, and asking for the resources. I remember one of our classmates, who's in a high school in Los Angeles. She posted pictures of their weight room for their football players. It was sad. I mean, it was rusty, old equipment. No way that these students could really train properly on it. There's my R's. Always struggling with my R's. Anyhow, she went out and did, she did a GoFundMe, and she went out looking for, like I said, grant money, and she was able to rebuild that weight room for those students. It was really an incredible, remarkable thing that she did. So I do remember that. So we always like to say, don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's a PhD student. I mean, we started this platform to help other doctoral students, and then we realized quickly a lot of people are dealing with similar issues, whether you're a PhD student or not. So if you're struggling with anything, or you're trying to reach a goal or climb a mountain, you don't have to do these things alone. And so
No,
that's my first strategy. What do you think, Marilyn?
absolutely. I think building a strong network of friends, like I loved in the outline today. I don't where you created the circle and it was how we all met and then building those connections outside. Yeah, that. I think we should put that when we post this video, or maybe I can add that in there because I think it is everybody reaching out to everybody, well, this person knows this person and this person, just how we all met. So I know there are other people out there that could bring more insight and help or encouragement, money, grant money, for your students, anything like that. I think it just becomes a snowball effect when it comes to networking.
Hmm. I have the confidence to ask others for help, and just how are you doing? I mean, it's a little bit broader than what we kind of dived into, the specific programming at the school level, but in just terms of building connections with people, I love the fact that when you start to reach out to other people, you realize we're very similar. We've talked about this. We're going through similar things. Like you said, the commencement speech resonated with you. I didn't know you, but I felt, very similar things for myself. And so I think that's a key for building connections and helping each other, be successful. Um, I had just a little note. It's a little bit, off topic, I guess, but I just in terms of building connections, and it's important to remember people's names.
When you put that out, when I saw that, I was like, I have to say somebody's name so many times and ask, like, Dr. Yes, I'm going to say it wrong. Benavides, did I say it right? Asking you how you say your name, but until I say your name so many times, do I remember? Like, I can remember a face, I can remember what you wore, I remember that you had a tie on, but then I'll go to be like, hi, I forget like that fast. I'm like, I just knew it. So I'm glad that you put that in there. I think it is very important. Remember people's names.
Yeah. And last week we talked about the power of learning. I have a note, don't be afraid to try new things, get outside your comfort zone. It's amazing how it might enlighten your life. And I kind of feel like you taking a chance to come on this, our show with us, knowing that you're our first guest ever.
You're so brave. We love you for that.
You have a lot of courage. And we haven't frozen
But
today
it,
yet, which is amazing.
but it goes back to you guys as well about not being afraid to ask, right?
Yeah, right. Good
Yes.
point.
All connected.
We are all connected. I love
Yeah,
that.
we are all connected. And I just want to share real quick. So about connections, I don't know if you've ever heard of Dwight Eisenhower's People to People Student Ambassador Program.
Mm-mm.
So my son was a part of it, and he was 11, and he got to go on this trip to England and France. But Dwight Eisenhower, and I would just took a quick note because I forgot the literature on it, started in 1956, and he aimed to foster peace and cultural exchange through direct interaction between citizens of different nations. So they start young, and it's so like he met up with the people in Georgia, and then Georgia met with another group area. And then they all went over and were student ambassadors. And he still has connections with the stateside and, overseas people. Because, I mean, this was in 1956. I believe the program is still going on, but all about building networks and connections because he knew later in life they would still be able to utilize those connections. So I think that's how powerful connections are and have been, So I wanted to make sure that I said that because I just thought it was kind of fascinating and it fit with this research.
Absolutely. We had an episode on finding balance. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that one, but I just wanted to mention that if you are at a point in your life, let's say you are actively working on your doctorate or you're in some advanced academic program or work or however your life is, if you don't have time to enjoy social connections and to enjoy the humanness in terms of building connections, then something might be out of balance, and you might want to just kind of think about that because, I mean, look at how wonderful it is that we're here now, the three of us. And if your life is so kind of out of balance, maybe you need to pause and be mindful about how to reclaim your health in some way so you can enjoy social interactions with other people.
Absolutely.
And we had an episode, one of our first, about the mental toll of the PhD journey. And I was very transparent to say, like, because we just finished a few months ago. And it's taken some time to reclaim my health in terms of dealing with the burnout of it and the exhaustion of it, right? You get it. We all get it. We get it. We were in the trenches. We understand. Um, and so that's another thing that if you are struggling with building connections in your life, maybe you just need to just kind of figure out how to reclaim your health, and just figure out how to live your life a little bit with more balance and good health.
right. Because we always say our health, we ourselves are the most important thing. Yes, we all have an end goal. We all are trying to get that PhD, EDD, whatever it is, we're trying to grasp that next promotion at work. But your health should not suffer from trying to get that. So you have to remember your own health comes first, for sure.
Mhm. Um, so every week, every episode, Marilyn, not to pressure you.
I'm always like, I didn't think it's gonna come to me.
Well, we always like to say celebrate the small wins. So as you look for um, making the work that you're doing in your field, more seamless and more opportunities for your students, and just celebrating the small wins is really where we can find a lot of empowerment, enjoyment, and success. What do you think, though, for this week?
Think like I love that it's just the building connections, and I love Dr. Benavides. I love like your quote. I think Dr. Gordon shared at the beginning. Mine was always movement is medicine, but I think yours is better. Like I think I love the movement. Say it again. You have it right in
Yeah,
front
I
of
was just going
you.
to read it again, okay?
Yeah,
And it's on
I
his
think
website.
let's leave it on his quote because I
Yes.
think it
And it
sums up.
also, I'm going to read the quote, but I also, if you can share your website and some of your contact information if you would like. Okay,
Yeah.
here's the quote. Movement is more than just motion. It's connection, growth, and purpose. And let me just say one thing. When we came up with this topic today, I hadn't even seen that on your website. So you already in your mind knew how important this topic was, which is fascinating to me. So,
Okay. So please share, like, can we add your, when we post this as well, do we have your permission to post your website?
Definitely. We're it's a small company, but I'm available online as well. I wanna grow and help as many people as I can. So
Awesome.
if we ever need help, consulting services, I'm here, available online as well.
what is the name of your website again?
It's um it's Dr. Benavides Physical Education Services. Um, but it's abbreviated to Dr. B PES.
Oh, nice.
So we just got the website up and running. Actually, we just added a virtual assistant on there. So of course, if you have any questions, you can ask, and it's pretty prompt to answering the questions in relation to the website. Um, the only thing is, it's on a Google site, so it might say like Google site slash Dr. Benavides.
Oh,
But as long as you click on the link, it takes you to the same place. Um, and it's just there, highlighting how we can help and just the different types of services that I want to make available to people. Um, I think especially one of the things that help towards it is, I think classroom teachers have, um a lot of, I mean, they have support, and of course they can always have more support, right?
Yes.
But there's people in place to support them in their classroom and help them with curriculum, and we don't see that in our field. So I want to insert myself and try to be that help if I can.
That's
oh, I
awesome.
think it's great. When I was a lifestyle director at the senior home, I used to say, my brain only goes so far. Sometimes, you need tools to add to your tool belt. And I was always looking and searching. Even within the company, I would find somebody from the dining. I'm like, hey, you're really good at this, particular, and I would snatch them for a project or whatever. But again, networking. But I think it's right because like as a teacher, they were only going to go so far. So I think with your services, being that extra help, being that other tool in the tool belt, that's going to be monumental for some people. So I think that's great that you offer that.
I appreciate it. Hey, at the end of the day, it's about the students, and it's about impacting them and getting that hook on them to enjoy it for a lifetime.
Does
Like,
that I mean, and you know what? And that's the connection between the three of us
Yeah.
because like I said in the beginning, and I said throughout, you are working with children, and we're kind of at the other end with older adults, and it's important for good health throughout life. So it was really wonderful to have you on. I hope that you will come back and
Yeah.
we'll talk more about other things that you're getting into with research. And we're really grateful that you came today and to join us on our podcast. Thank you so much.
And it's the 4th of July. I forgot to say
I
that.
know,
In the
right?
beginning, happy 4th of July. We're all here together. So thank you for sacrificing, today's day for this podcast. That means a lot.
Well, appreciate being on, and I'm glad that you guys invited me. I'd be more than happy to come on another time. And I'm sure, like I said at the beginning, it's a great idea to have doctors in a room just discussing. So I'm sure there's other topics that we can go on and on about.
Yeah.
So I'd be more than happy to.
All righty. Well,
Thank
we
you.
will see everybody next week. I don't know that we've firmed up our topic quite yet, so we have a couple ideas. So you'll have to find us next week and see what we come up with. But everybody have a wonderful 4th of July holiday, and thank you as always for listening to the PhD Journey Unplugged podcast.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.